Hello friends, welcome to the learning series on the great scientists and technologists of the world. Today we are going to learn about Louis Pasteur, one of the most famous and renowned scientists of the 19th century. Kindly watch till the end to know the unknown areas of Louis Pasteur. Scientist Louis Pasteur revolutionized the medical field in the 19th century. He was a firm believer in the transcendence of spiritual values above everything else. He found the method of pasteurization, the germ theory of disease, and a cure for rabies. If you are new to the channel, kindly subscribe and click on the bell button to get our subsequent videos. Let's go into the video. In the little town of Dole, on the Jura mountain range in France, there lived a poor tanner named Jean Pasteur. It was a cold December in 1822, and Jean's wife had given birth to a baby boy. They named him Louis Pasteur. During his time in elementary school, Louis did not excel academically. Whenever he had the chance, he would rather fish and draw. Louis's father did not want him to become an artist, despite the fact that he was an excellent sketcher. His father wished for Louis to complete his studies and pursue a career as a professor. Louis started focusing on his education because he wanted to carry out his father's wishes. He started displaying a growing interest in chemistry and other scientific subjects at school. Seeing Louis's promise, the headmaster persuaded Louis's father to enroll his son in the École Normale Supérieure in Paris. This esteemed French university was established with the express purpose of preparing exceptional students for careers in science. Soon after, he received a call from the University of Strasbourg and was appointed as a chemistry professor. Louis fell in love with the rector's daughter while attending the University of Strasbourg. Following their May 29, 1849, marriage, they had 5 children. Louis was appointed dean of the University of Lille's new science building in 1854. It was here that he initiated a highly modern educational concept. Louis firmly believed that there should be a strong connection between theory and practice, between education and industry. He organized and supervised special practical courses and conducted many tours of the large factories with his students. Lille was an industrial town with a large number of distilleries and factories. While Louis was there at the university, an industrialist approached him with some doubts about the production of alcohol from grain and beet sugar. This fascinated Louis, and he began his studies on fermentation. At that time, most people believed that yeast cells were a byproduct of the fermentation process. There were a few biologists who believed that yeast was actually the cause of fermentation. Since they could not prove their theory, the other scientific experts ridiculed them. Louis decided to validate this theory. Louis spent the next several years figuring out which particular microbes were in charge of both normal and abnormal fermentation. Then he demonstrated how he could sterilize wine, beer, or milk by heating it to a relatively high temperature for a short period of time and killing any microbes that were there. This procedure became referred to as pasteurization. People thought that beetles, eels, maggots, and microbes could simply arise spontaneously from decaying matter. This was a subject of debate at the French Academy of Sciences. Louis thought it was evident that the yeast and other microorganisms arrived from the outside based on his research on fermentation. Through a series of clever tests, Louis demonstrated that the yeast originated from the grape skin. He let air taken from mountain tops and sea levels enter sterile jars holding fermentable solutions to demonstrate that the dust in the air was the source of contamination. Less dust occurs in the air, and fewer flasks exhibit development at higher altitudes. Through a series of studies on the contamination of wine by airborne yeast, Louis clearly proved that yeast and other diseases could be caused by the entry of foreign microorganisms. Although a lot of doctors and scientists believed that germs could travel in the air, most of them were unwilling to agree that deadly diseases such as cholera, smallpox, etc. could be caused in the same way. Louis made a well-known address before the Paris Academy of Medicine in an attempt to explain the issue to the scientific community. This water, this sponge, and this lint, which you use to wash or cover a wound, may deposit germs within the tissue that have the ability to multiply quickly, the speaker stated. Not only would I use spotless tools if I were an honorary surgeon, but I would also take the utmost care to wash my hands. Only lint, bandages, and sponges that have been exposed to temperatures between 1300 and 1500 degrees would I use. Lewis's advice gradually gained traction in the medical world, and now antiseptic surgery and medicine are standard practice. Lewis's discovery that most infectious diseases are caused by germs came to be known as the germ theory of disease. It was one of the most important discoveries in medical history. Lewis's work became the foundation for the science of microbiology and a cornerstone of modern medicine. At that time, France's economy and sheep industry were being destroyed by anthrax, a deadly illness that affects cattle and sheep. Even though Robert Koch, a German scientist, had previously identified the anthrax bacillus in diseased sheep, he had not established the bacillus's causal relationship with anthrax. Lewis employed straightforward experiments to establish beyond a shadow of a doubt that the anthrax bacillus was the only possible cause of the illness. His germ theory was thus solidly proven. Continuing his research, Lewis discovered that weakened forms of a microbe could be used as an immunization against more virulent forms of the microbe. For the first time, he discovered that people could be vaccinated against a disease. The last and most famous of Lewis's research was the development of a vaccine against rabies. Although very few people died of rabies, it was still a terrible disease that gripped the imagination of many people. People used to treat a rabies bite by burning the bite wound with a red-hot iron. Through his research, Lewis found that the rabies agent was present in the dog's spinal cord and brain. After extracting the agent, he finally developed a vaccine for rabies. After initial testing, Lewis vaccinated 40 dogs. Lewis became famous in 1885 after it was reported that he had found a cure for rabies. But the next question was, will the vaccine work on human beings? On July 6, 1885, 9-year-old Joseph Meister and his mother went to Lewis's laboratory. Little Joseph had been bitten so badly by a rabid dog that he could not walk. Hesitantly, Lewis treated him with the anti-rabies vaccine. Little Joseph made a perfect recovery and remained in fine health. Following reports of Lewis's successful treatment, victims of dog and wolf bites from all over the world poured into Lewis's laboratory for treatment. Louis Pasteur became a hero and a legend. The Pasteur Institute, funded by public and governmental subscriptions, was built in Paris to treat victims of rabies. Later on, more Pasteur Institutes were built across the world. Rabies was Lewis's last major research project. His health was failing, and a paralysis of his left side from a serious stroke he suffered when he was 46 years old made working in the laboratory increasingly difficult. Louis Pasteur died in 1895 after suffering from additional strokes. He was buried like a national hero by the French government. His funeral was attended by thousands of people. Although Louis Pasteur was a scientist who brought about a revolution in the 19th century medical world, he always believed that there were spiritual values that transcended everything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, give it a thumb up and share it with your friends and family.